Anthony. Tonight I have Brittingham, Dana Brittingham. Sorry, everyone, or just D Brit. She wrote a book about the little girl and the other woman. So this author is a native from Delaware. She holds a bachelor's of science degree in organization and management with focus on diversity, empathy, and inclusion. She also serves as multi roles within ministry and the community. Dana is a creator, a songwriter, and entrepreneur in her print and design. Tonight, everyone, please welcome D Britt.
You did good.
Okay, good. Thank you. It's Lord knows. So, how are you tonight, D?
I'm doing well. I am doing well. Excited to
That's
be
good.
here. Thank you.
You're welcome. So, give everyone a little background who Dana is. You know, were you did you were you raised in church? Give a
Yes.
little background.
Born and raised in the church, native of Delaware. I've been in Delaware all of my life for the most part. Um, Born and raised in the church,
Mhm.
like from an infant to the church. I don't think I can recall a time that I have not been in church.
Mhm.
That is what I know. So yes, born and raised in the church.
So let me ask you this: what did your parents introduce you to God?
I was raised by my grandparents. Um, Actually, my grandparents raised me. So yeah, my grandparents raised me. So literally from an infant, I was probably within 6 weeks of being born, I was in the church. My
Oh,
grandmother took me to church every week. So
okay.
that is all I know. Literally, all I know is church.
Okay.
So I
So that's good. That the reason why I ask everyone that because when we have God in our lives at an early age and we grow at the age we are now, we should never have to ever lean to something else if we know God. He should be our first source in life of, like, if someone dies or a child is born or whatever struggles that we deal with, we should always lean to learn to trust God. And as we develop and get into God or Jesus or the Lord, we should learn to lean on him. This is why I ask everybody that question.
He is
Well, not everybody.
definitely, God is definitely my foundation. No matter, what I've gone through in my life, what I go through in my life, God is the foundation of
Right.
my life. That's one thing that I can say that um, I don't think there's been a time that I left the church per se. People go to church, they leave. I didn't leave physically. I think there's been times in my life where I've I've left emotionally,
Hmm.
mentally, maybe physically. Not physically, but mentally, spiritually, you have those down times when it's like, oh my gosh, but he is the foundation of my life. He is a resource of my life.
So now I'm going to ask you a couple of questions because I didn't realize you was a songwriter.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Wait, you write songs too? Like, for who have you written songs for?
So I wrote a song that was recorded by Zach Williams and One Accord out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I've written a few songs for plays, and I'm currently a part of a play, and I'm writing more songs. Well, putting the music to it, and I did songs for a play a couple years ago,
Mhm.
and I have probably 20 songs or so in my phone that I have not completed. So they're more like praise and worship songs. The first song that I wrote was called "Things Are Gonna Get Better," and I remember where I was when I wrote it. I was driving. I was sitting at a traffic light. I was going through some things, and the lyrics came to me, and I just put pen to paper, added some voices. I did write a song called Coming Again, recorded by Justin Powell, in adoration. My Bishop Mary Alexander, actually was the lead on that. She kind of moderated the song. So it's a passion, a growing, it's growing on me. Music is my passion.
Okay. Wow. That's like me. So that's like me. It's like I sing with Hezekiah Walker, but I've always had the gift of writing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like just hearing songs that are just in my head. It's just like I write it down, or I have to go in my cell phone and type up the song with the words that the Lord gave me. Like
Yes.
that's how it works with you too. So it's
Yes.
like
I usually do like voice memos. So if I hear a tune, I'll, and I'm not a singer. I know how to hold my note, but I'm not a singer. So I'll do a voice memo into my phone real quick, just so that, I won't forget it, because sometimes there has been times, uh, tunes, lyrics have come to me in my dreams. And if I wake up and I remember it, I kind of just, it's been a few times. I've not recently, but I've you know, woke up at like 6 in the morning, and I'm like, let me just scratchy voice and everything, but let me just sing this into the phone so I wouldn't forget. So I at least have a memory or a basis to go off of when I'm actually ready to sit down and complete it. And
right,
most of the songs I have written, they're not wordy. It's
right,
it's like a simple message. And I'm not a 16 verse song. It's like a couple of lines. It hits home for me first, and then I
right.
just try to make it do what it, you know, make it work.
That's good. That's good to know because it comes in different elements of. I, I feel like from I was younger, teenagers to now, the words and the situation or the tribulation is different. So you
Hmm.
write different
Hmm.
by the experience that you can bless people, and or sometimes you have to bless yourself first before you can bless the other person.
And I'm a very simple person, so I think that's why the songs that I have written
Mhm.
are, I don't want to call them basic, but they are. They're
Right.
basic. They're simple. I think there's only been maybe two songs that have had like multiple verses, and I think I added it just for the fun of it not being so short. But
Right.
for me, those messages come to me very simple, very easy, very clear, and it's what I need, and it's, I can share um with people. I don't look for things to go international. If it
Mhm.
blesses the few people that are around me, then I've completed what.
Good task.
Yes, absolutely.
So Dana, tell me a little bit more about like it's a okay, so what is your writing journey? When did you start knowing that you had the gift of writing?
Um, so when I was in high school, my language arts teacher was very intimidating to me. I thought he was intimidating. He was fun, but it was one of my favorite subjects.
Right.
And he gave us an assignment to do, a writing assignment. It was simply read something and share your thoughts afterwards. I
Mm-hmm.
waited until the last minute to do the assignment. I literally probably did the assignment the night before, and I was in probably my freshman year.
Mm-hmm.
So he was randomly, we turned in our assignments. He was randomly picking out papers to read, but he wasn't saying the names of, he was just like, I'm just going to read through a couple of, assignments to see, what your thoughts were based on the assignment that he gave us. And it was one page. He read my paper aloud. And of course, I was sweating, sitting in my seat. Of course, nobody knew it was me but me. And
Right.
he got to the end of it, and he paused and he was like, wow. And I was like, oh my gosh, my English teacher thought something of my writing. And it was a moment for me in high school because I was just like, wow. But I never pursued writing beyond that. And the
Right.
funny thing is, I think I've kind of low key always been interested in journalism, communications, and photography, videography. I took a course in high school.
Right.
I probably should have pursued that directly out of college. So, and it wasn't until I think as I got older, out of high school into college, having to write papers, that I discovered, oh, I kind of have a gift for being able to formulate and put, you know, words together, make it sound great, make it make sense.
Hmm.
So I think a lot of my writing developed during college. I'm an administrative. I started off as an administrative assistant. I'm a program manager now. They're, you know, writing articles and, you know, so it was later. It's been something that
Okay.
has been developing. Mhm.
Okay. That sounds good. So so when did you know that you should write your book, basically? The style.
It
How did you know, like, can you describe the genre of your writing, preparing, writing style? Like, when did you know I was going to write this book?
probably not until a year ago for this specific book. It started off, I was going to write about my journey as a single parent with my son. It was
Right.
really going to be all about him.
Okay.
Um, and I started writing, and I wasn't sure where to start writing. But then I'm like, I can't start there. I had to start earlier. I went through something in my life a couple years ago, and I
Mm.
was in counseling for it. And the counselor asked me, Dana, tell me about your childhood. And a light bulb went off for me that my childhood played a huge role in where I was and a
Right.
huge role in my thinking, how I navigate, how I move, how I operate, my personality. All of that started as a child. And I never really gave it any weight until I went through something in my life and I was forced, in a sense, to confront my childhood, where things stem from. And
Right.
so I'm like, let me write about it. Let me start writing. So before then I started writing and I stopped. I'm like, this is boring. Nobody wants to hear this. So I was like, no, I'm good. You know, and then going through what I went through, I'm like, let me write again. And that's when it really started. The journey really started writing.
Wow. So this book that you wrote now, The Little Girl and the Other Woman, what is the title that you wrote? What is that from? Is it
Um, the little girl, I think it's a lot of it's a lot of things. When you read it, you'll understand.
hmm
But overall, it's going from the little girl growing into the other woman, the new me, the person that I am now, and the person that I am developing into, and just some of the experiences in my life where I felt like I was even a little girl as an adult, as far as my thinking and not feeling like, you know, I had any control in my life. There was, you know,
Sorry.
so the title itself takes on a few themes for me.
Okay. Explain, let me hear.
Explain? Let me explain it.
Yes, because
Um,
for me, the reason why when I ask you, when I read the little girl, so basically the little girl in God grew and you got saved and you grew up to the age you are now and you grew in grace in God. So as you got older, the maturity level, the spiritual gifts, all this start developing. So that's what I was saying. That's when I look at your title. That's what I think about. The little girl grew up into this woman. And so it's like, for example, I had encountered 2022.
mhm,
I've been in counseling for years on the private spectrum, just healing the past.
Mhm.
And the younger version of me invite the younger 5 6 year old visited me at 54. I really lost it for 24 hours, so I had to sit there and process what the little boy in me was saying to me. When I went through that whole dilemma, it wasn't even, yeah, it was good, bad, and ugly. But when I went into the next day, I wrote down, okay, this is the introduction to my new book. Because of the younger version of me was telling me what I went through as a kid, and the grown up is listening.
So the little girl in me, obviously, you know, was the young age, but I also interpret the little girl in me again with my mentality. And I'm trying to think of the best way to say it. There's been times, like I said, in my adulthood that I
Mhm.
still felt like the little girl. I felt like I made bad decisions. I didn't feel freedom in being who I really am. You know, I felt like, gosh, I can't make, you know, I'm making these decisions. This was the wrong decision. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have done this. It was so many things. And again, going through a specific thing in my life forced me to come out of my shell and to
Mhm.
be Dana. I in some respects I feel like I've hidden behind who I really am for years. Like there's a side of me that my inner circle knows. The those personal moments, those intimate moments, those intimate things about me, the good, bad, ugly things about me. But then now I feel like I'm at a point in my life where it's like put on my big girl undies
Yes.
and be Dana. You know, I'm mature enough to make my own decisions. I'm mature enough to make um decisions even if nobody else agrees with my decisions. I've
Mhm.
always been a person, I care about other people's feelings. I care about what other people think of me. I'm always very cautious about other people's feelings. That's the little girl, although it is a very natural part of me. That's a natural side of me. I care about people. I love people.
Mhm.
But caring and loving people too much can sometimes really hurt you. It
Yes.
can stagnate you in life because it's like, oh, I'm always being considerate of someone else. And I'm not really thinking about what is it that makes Dana happy. And so I'm at that point now where my first priority, of course, is God. Um, I have a 14-year-old daughter,
Mhm.
but that next step is what is it that's going to make me happy in my life? And those are the things that I am pursuing as the other woman.
Mhm. And walking in humility
Yes.
and grace.
Yes. There is nothing about my life, you know, that I'm grateful for grace. I'm going to say that. I am grateful for grace because there's been some things I've gone through. I'm like, oof, if God's grace and mercy didn't follow me, a lot of things could have happened, you know.
Right.
So, and yeah, I one thing I can say about myself, I'm a very humble person. There's nothing snooty about me. I am just who I am. So I go through life now with, you know, an attitude like, God, I'm grateful. I'm grateful that you didn't cut me off. I'm very
Sorry.
grateful that you gave me another chance. And I know sometimes we say that very cliche as he gave me
Mhm.
one more chance. I thank God for every chance that he's given me because
Right.
it's given me an opportunity to grow, it's given me an opportunity to repent, it's given me an opportunity to just start again. And that's where I am. So I am growing in grace, and I'm very grateful for being where God has me right now.
Mhm. So when you wrote, okay, question to this, I'm taking you a little off a little bit.
Yeah.
So when you wrote this book was for writing for you, or you, because it has to hit you first before it hits
It
others.
absolutely hit me first. It was a healing process for me, because the more I wrote, the more details I started remembering about my life.
Right.
Especially when I was writing about the little girl, like I was going back and I remembered my room that I stayed in. I
Mm-hmm.
remember the details of my room.
Mm-hmm.
And people might think, oh, that's the details of your room. For me, it hit differently. You
Right.
know, I grew up in a very, very small space. You walk in my room, you turn around and you walk out. I didn't have a huge room. I didn't
Right.
have luxuries like that, but I was always taken care of. My grandparents, I didn't lack for anything as
Right.
a child. So it was a healing process as I wrote, because um, I remembered certain moments of my life.
Mm-hmm.
I remembered growing up in the church. I
Mm-hmm.
remembered just little teeny details that you kind of forget about. But then when I
Right.
was sitting and I started writing, I was just like, oh my gosh, I remember that. I remember that. Oh my gosh. And recalling those things kind of hit different things in my future.
Mm-hmm.
Like one thing I will share, in my church, we sang a lot of hymns. It got on my nerves to sing every verse of the hymn. It was like four
Yes.
verses in the chorus, and then you go back into the last verse, and you come out of that and go back into the chorus.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody come around the altar for prayer. It Now I learned them. I learned
Mm-hmm.
all the verses. I still know the verses. Those
Right.
hymns are what I went back to when I was going through trauma in my life.
Right.
Turn on my phone, I would find every hymn that I could, and I played those hymns all night. I put it on low because I needed to remember what carried me as a child.
Right.
And I didn't realize it at the time. You know, it was routine. I go to church, got the hymn book. Sometimes I even knew the number that the song was on.
Yes.
Like it was memory, you know what I'm saying? But when I got older, hymns looked very different to me. The words, the message. So and that's how I started connecting my childhood to becoming an adult.
Wow. And see, because even now in church, people don't, unless you really, because right now hymns have gone through the window. Now they do praise and worship.
Hmm.
And I'm like saying I prefer the hymns because the hymns were the things that really, if you were going through anything, the hymns really structured you and covered you.
Yes.
Now the worship and praise, it's kind of growing on me.
It's growing on me too. I'm very old school. I say that often. I'm very old school. I think part of that has to do with growing up with my grandparents, um, but then growing up in a church that had a lot of older members.
Right.
So I've always been, I think, in a sense, old fashioned, old school.
Hmm.
So the praise and worship now, it's growing on me a little bit. It's growing on me. We sing praise and worship at my church. Shout out to my pastors, Pastor Spencer and Pastor Sheila Alexander. So it's growing on me, but I find myself that when I'm really going through, I
Hmm.
revert back to those old songs. I revert back to the call and response songs. I revert back to the blessed assurance, what a friend we have in Jesus. Those songs hit so much differently now than when I was as a kid.
Growing up.
And that will always be my foundation. That will always be for me. And that,
Hmm.
it may be different for other people, but for me,
Hmm.
that's what carries me through.
So let me ask you this. Um, when you wrote this book intention, this going back to the same question, go back again. So this you wrote this book for your clarity. So now if someone picks up the book, what are they gonna get out of this book?
They're going to learn about Dana. They're going to get to know who I am, like really who I am.
Mm-hmm.
Not everything. The
Some
parts,
things you gotta keep quiet.
the parts of my life that I've chosen to share.
Right.
Um, I recently was a guest at a tea, and I went a little bit more in depth about things that I didn't share in my book, as I
Right.
said that I would. I was in another interview with Lady D, and I said, my purpose in writing wasn't to expose anyone. I could have. It's so much I could have said, but that wasn't my purpose. I touched on certain things and then I got off of it. I got off
Mm-hmm.
of it because the same way that I have a story, somebody also has a story. And
Right.
that's their story may be about me. So
Right.
I'm still very cautious with regard to what I say and how I share it and how I recall it. So you pick up the book, you read the book. My daughter-in-law, I only say her daughter-in-law by title, but she is my daughter.
Okay.
Um, she read the book. She was just like, I finished your book already. I'm like, you just got it. She was just like, I love to read. She's like, I feel like I don't know you. Now I've known her since 2017.
Mm-hmm.
And she was just like, I felt like I didn't know you. And that's because, sometimes you know people from the surface, but you don't know them in depth, like the things that I went through as a kid, some of the experiences that I had. And those things are why I am who I am.
Right.
So I think a person reading it will walk away like, oh, wow, Dana, I didn't know that about you. I didn't know that you experienced this. I didn't know this had happened in your life. And
Right.
then some things I would say people may walk away and feel like it's a mystery. Like, oh, because I did have one person that read it. They were just like, wait a minute, you left us hanging in one part. I did.
You supposed to. That'll be part two.
I did. I left them hanging.
So basically you wrote this book for healing for you,
I think
clarification,
I
and
wanted
clarity.
I think I needed to get some things out of my system. And that's maybe a weird way to say it. Um, I just wanted to write. I wanted to. It was an accomplishment for me, to be honest. Like, wow, I actually wrote a book. And yes, I think it was for me first. It was
Mhm.
my healing. And the more I wrote, like I had so many versions of the book. I would write a chapter. Um, I would go to sleep. I would stay up to like 12, 1 o'clock in the morning writing. And as soon as I laid down, I'm like, nope, I want to change it. Or I would get to the end. I would send it off to get a copy of it. As soon as I hit that send button and go to bed, I woke up. I'm like, nope, I forgot to add this. I
Yo,
forgot to talk about this. Or you know what? I'm not going to put that in there. So it changed a lot. And I had to think about why I was changing it. Was I changing it because I didn't want to hurt someone's feelings by what I was going to say? Was I
mhm,
changing it because I just didn't think it was relevant? Did I
mhm.
change it because that's just something for me to
Right.
process?
Right.
So there are things there are, and I believe this about everyone. There are things that I think that we can and should share. There are some stories that I didn't put in there, but some stories that others may know about because maybe an experience that I had, someone else had that I was ashamed to talk about at the time that it happened. But then I came across someone who was going through the same thing, and I'm like, "Ooh, that's an open door.
Mhm.
Let me share this with them so that they know they're going to be okay." Because sometimes the things that we go through that we think are shameful, things that, like, oh my gosh, what was I thinking?
Mhm.
Somebody else is going through the same thing or has gone through the same thing.
Mhm.
And so it was a process for me as I was writing to kind of figure out, why am I writing this? You know, if someone else reads this, how are they going to interpret what I've written?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it was a lot of, it's a process in writing for me. It was a huge process.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Because it's funny because what you just said to me, it's like I went on a show a week before my birthday. I went on a radio show. I was not planning. I was just gonna just talk about the show, what I do, and everything. And it took me someplace else. They took me somewhere, and I basically shared. I really wasn't planning to share my past because I want to write about my past,
Hmm.
being molested in the church, but not hating anyone. You're writing it to help people to know that even though it happened, God is still able to cover you, keep you, and you're not being crazy. And that's why I tell everyone therapy works for everyone. You have to find that right therapist
I love
to
it.
get healed. And when you get your healing, then you're able to write clearly.
Hmm.
So it doesn't hit the wrong people the wrong way. But people are going to read it anything you write, people are going to read it any kind of way if their mind is in the right place.
Hmm. And
So
I was
that's
conscious of
good.
that. I was very conscious of that. I'm like, if I write, so there's two sides to this though.
Okay.
Um, People that know me very close, my inner circle, my sister girls,
Yeah, I see them all.
they they can read in between the lines
Mm-hmm.
because they know the story behind the story.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so they're able to be like, "Oh, yep, I remember this, but this is a very sweet version." And again, those are things that I some things you can't tell it all. I choose not to tell it all. There are some
Mm-hmm.
things that need to stay right here.
Sacred,
It
right.
does. It does. I think sometimes we incriminate ourselves by thinking, oh, I'm a very transparent person, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
transparent at what I want to be transparent about.
Right.
Everything is not meant for everyone because then people will look at you cross-eyed and have an image. I think I used to be afraid of that. I'm trying to get my shirt right. I used to be afraid of that, and that was one reason why there were some things that I picked. I was just like, oh, let me choose what I really want to share because I'm like, what image is a person going to? What are they going to think of me if I go into full detail? But it's not something that I really need to go into full detail about. You know, it again, it wasn't about exposing, it wasn't about bashing, it was about telling my story. It was more for me than it was for anyone else.
Right. Right. Sounds good. But it's interesting. So what is the best topic in your book?
Mm.
Do you have a chapter one to the ending? What is
I No, not really. I think my life kind of spiced up, if I would say, after I became a mother. My son is 26 now.
mm-hmm,
Um, After that time is when you kind of see things developing.
mm-hmm,
Then you see, oh, okay. And I really could have expounded on a lot more in those chapters, but
mm-hmm.
it just wasn't my choice. Not, at least not for this book. The
Okay.
purpose of this was to hit it, quit it, and then move on eventually into maybe talking more deeply about some of those chapters, which
Mm-hmm,
is what I did when I went to the T. The other thing that I did, I think for my own um, personal freedom, is after I released my book, I sat at the computer and there was a part of me that felt like I didn't do myself justice.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I wrote a book, but there was a part I just didn't feel like I could share everything. And I
Mm-hmm.
think for me, I still wanted to get that out.
Right.
So I wrote a follow up to my book called The Missing Pages. And the missing pages, behind each chapter, I wrote my real true thoughts.
Right.
Each chapter, I'm like, I titled it The Real Truth, The Other Truth. And I just started typing my heart, what my heart really felt,
Right.
different than what I put in a book. It was the true feelings
Right.
of what I was really feeling as I was writing. And I think that's not something, I don't know if I'll ever release missing pages, but I needed to do that for myself because
You're
one
here.
one thing that I really really um stress a lot is about truth and transparency. Be truthful with yourself first.
Mm-hmm.
You can put on a fake affront for other people, but when it comes to yourself, be honest. If
Mm-hmm.
I'm not having a good day, I acknowledge that first to God. I'm not having a good day. My day is not starting well. I'm
Mm-hmm.
angry about this, or I don't understand this, or, I am learning to live in my moments. That is the other woman of
Mm-hmm.
who I am now, living in my own truth. Because sometimes I think for myself, I've tried to put up such a front. So for a lot of years, um,
Mm-hmm.
I would feel one way, but when I walk out in public, no one would know because I'm still going to be Dana. I'm still going to laugh. I'm still going to joke. I'm still going to act crazy because that's my personality. But then
Mm-hmm.
behind closed doors, I'm in tears. Or behind
So,
closed doors, I'm having a tantrum.
so
Going
let
on.
me let me ask you this: when you did the inner, you wrote the real book for yourself. Did you go through that place of resentment, crying out to God, the snot, the crying?
Absolutely not. I wrote
Okay.
so free. Um, and I just wrote. I'm like, nope, I'm gonna put it on paper. I'm gonna put it on paper. So one thing that I did share when I was at the tea that I went to, um, was when my mother, prior to my mother passing away, my best friend gave me a journal. She was just like, I want you to, journal this journey. My mother had cancer and it was going to be a big adjustment to my life. Like in my head, I'm like, I need to take off time from work. I'm going to have to go back and forth with her to treatments. And, so before I was able to actually write in that journal about the journey, my mother passed. And so the intent was to write about my journey, but now I'm writing about something else. This is a
Right.
journey of grief. My
Mm-hmm.
mother is gone, and initially I wasn't sure what to write in a journal. Like, you have people that write to the deceased, their loved one, dear such and such. I'm like, I'm not writing to her. She
Mm-hmm.
can't, she's
She
not going to
can't.
see
She
this.
can't hear you. Right.
She's not going to see this.
Mm-mm.
So it started off very, I miss my mom, I just, and then I just kind of at one point, I'm like, you know what? I more than miss my mom. I need to acknowledge that I feel guilty about some things. I feel
Mm-hmm.
guilty about time that I missed that I didn't spend, you know. And so I think that was developing in me. It was a way for me to start healing as well. Cause I'm like, I need to be honest with where I am. And I
Mm-hmm.
was afraid, I'm just like, if I write this on paper, who's going to read? It's my journal. It's what I wanted to write. So I didn't snot over missing pages. I wrote exactly what I wanted to write.
What age your mom passed?
My mom was 60 when she passed. So
How
for
old
me,
you
that
were?
was young. I was, she's been gone almost 7 years. So I am 48. So about 41, 42. when my mother passed.
Okay.
So it was it was a pretty dark time for me, for a lot of reasons, which I kind of share surfacely in my book. You'll understand better. But missing pages, I think, just helped me release what I was really feeling. I just need to get it out there. Like, I
Mhm.
need to write about this, and I need to acknowledge what the real deal is just for
Mhm.
myself.
Right.
I needed to do that.
Hmm. That's good. It's good. So I see that you do you do you went I would notice that you do what a friend does. You went to school for diversity inclusion. A friend of mine used to talk about getting the mind thinking about an ideal in your mind and writing it down and make money. That's what you learned about
No, so I
diversity.
went to school for organizational management.
Okay.
When I started my job, I started I work at a university. It was the Office of Women's Affairs. I was a secretary at the time,
Mm.
and then my job evolved into work around diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Okay.
It was an eye opener for me, as it still is. There's so many levels to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I've been on my job for going on 24 years. So I've seen a lot of changes um, around what is diversity, what is equity, what is inclusion. The world is in a much, much different place now than it was 20 some years ago. So my work um, with equity, inclusion, acceptance gives me a different perspective on how I look at people.
Mhm.
One thing about me is um, I try at best not to take a judgmental attitude toward people, toward their choices. You know, I genuinely love people for just who they are. I don't care about your choices. I love you for who you are. So the work that we do at the university is centered around just that, but it's so involving. There's many levels. Some people think diversity is just race, age. It's a mindset. It's the things that you think about. You know, you may like one thing, that may not be my opinion. You know,
Right.
but it's just so many levels, and I'm still learning. I'm still learning the field, um, and what that looks like in my personal life, what that looks like for, the people that are around me, how I
Mm.
interact with strangers, how you entertain people, you know, just you accept people for who they are. That's who
Right.
you are. I want to be accepted for who I am. I want to be loved for who I am. So I totally, the scripture in the Bible, do unto others, treat them the way you want to be treated. That's, I live by that. I
Right.
want to be treated well, so I'm going to treat you well. I want to be treated with respect. I'm going to treat you with respect.
Hmm.
And I live by that.
So let me ask you this. um, so you see how they have new writers coming. So how would you inspire someone that was thinking about writing a book? Um, how do they start it?
Um, there's been a few people um, that are interested in writing books, and they have. And my first advice to them is just write. Don't worry about editing. Don't worry about format. Just write.
Right.
Sometimes just putting the thoughts on paper is that's your first step, because it may change later.
Right.
You may start writing and think it's going in one direction. That may change, but just start putting those thoughts on paper, and then it will shape.
Hmm.
I initially started And then I stopped for about 5 years, and I didn't go back to it until recently, until like last year. So it's just like, just write, just put it out there.
Mm-hmm.
If the thought is here, write it.
So, question: How? What is the advice? As okay, so you wrote it. What is the process after you write it? What does the person do from writing to finishing it, and then processing it, and then getting it developed?
So I did self publish. Um, and so I wrote it first. Then I went back through it, of course, and I read through it several times because I'm looking for everything that I misspelled. Did I use the correct version of a word? Like I that in itself was so nerve-wracking to me because I would get to the end. I'm like, let me send it off to get a draft of it, get it back, read through it. I'm like, how did I miss that period? How did I miss that comma? How
Right.
did I miss that dash? So I'm like, I got to do this again. But it was a good thing for me because each time I went through that, something else hit me differently as I was reading. Because
Mm-hmm.
now I'm reading as I have it in my hand. It's not on my computer. It's not on the laptop. I have a physical book in my hand. I'm able to open up this book and I'm able to read from page to page to page. And I'm like, wow, okay. What do I want the reader to see out of this story, out of
Mm-hmm.
this chapter?
Mm-hmm.
So after I got to a point, I have two of my besties that we are accountable to one another, and they were like, dang, you have to get this done. You keep
Right.
going back. It writing a book can take a while because it's so many things that you think about, like, no, I want to change this. They were like, listen, you have to get to a point where you stop. You can always write again. You can always do a second book. Get to a point where you stop. So I finally got to a point where I stopped. I sent it to them. I'm like, hey, can you look through this to make sure, does everything sound correct? And again, to have someone look and edit and say, what did you mean right here? What did you mean when you wrote that? Or like, this to me, I know what you're trying to say, but this is how it comes across. That helped me tremendously because had I just gone off of, oh, this looks good to me, I don't know how it would have come across to the reader. And so then it also made me go back and think, is this really the way I want to present this situation? Is this really the way I want to present this chapter? And if not, I need to go back. So finally got through that process.
Mm-hmm.
I sent it off and I'm like, I'm not changing this anymore.
Right. Right.
Change it anymore. So once I got there, I'm like, okay, it was a great accomplishment for me. Um, I felt like I was like, wow, I really did it. Like this was pretty cool.
You tap yourself and say, "Oh, I did a good job."
Nah, no, I'm not like that.
Why?
No, I listen.
Well, see, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
It was an accomp. You know what I did? I thanked God for the ability to write a book. That was the mentality that I had. God, thank you for giving me the wisdom, the insight, and even the experiences to share.
Right.
That's what I was grateful for. It was
Mhm.
something that I think I've wanted to do for a long time. I just really never focused enough. So for me, it was an accomplishment. Like, thank God. Like, wow, this is an accomplishment for me. So that's what I took away from it.
So after you wrote the book, what is the next process after writing the book? What does because I'm gonna be doing this eventually. So
Oh, you
after
can
you write the book, what
well, you
happens?
can choose to self-publish or find a publisher. I chose to self-publish. I self-published through Amazon
Mhm.
KDP. Went through that. It was that part of it I think was pretty easy. I designed my own cover. I did all that because that's one thing that I'm gifted in is graphics and art design. So I pretty much did everything myself. I uploaded my cover, I uploaded the my manuscript, send it away to see all right, did they approve this? Are all my margins good and everything? And when they gave me that go, I was like, showtime. So then I
Sure.
had to figure out, what platform. So my book is on Amazon. It's also on a platform called Gumroad.
Okay.
So I had to figure that out. My next step possibly is to turn it into an Audible, because I know sometimes people don't have the bandwidth to just sit and read. Sometimes listening to a book. I like Audibles. So that is one thing that I am considering, is doing an Audible of it.
Sit down.
I
I
can't.
told you. Um, so okay, so let me ask you. So after that, do you have to order the books?
So I ordered, um, I think I started on a small quantity. I think I ordered like 20, 25 books. Some people did pre-orders. So I
Mhm.
made sure I had enough for that, and then ordered extra just in case I was out and about and someone said, "Oh, can I order a book?" So I had a few, and I had to place orders a few times. So
Right.
I was happy about that, you know, and just kind of wanting feedback a little bit from people. Um
I'm gonna read it and I'm gonna call you and I'm gonna say, "Cause we have to do it." Whenever I get my book this
mhm,
weekend,
mhm.
I'm gonna bring you back on and we're gonna have another conversation.
Yeah.
So I met you 2 years ago at Pastor Nancy's church,
Yes.
and you so shy. I'm so sorry. You so shy. Why are you shy?
I'm not really, I wouldn't call myself shy. I'm cautious.
Pastor Nancy said her feedback is she was crying and
Thank
laughing
you,
and crying
sister.
and praising the Lord. And see, a lot of people are responding to you and talking to you. I didn't read everything, but Keisha says, yes, she cares so much for everyone, ministry, business, family, etc., such as amazing supporter of everyone. And now she's turning into my sister. Thank you, Sister Keisha. Pastors all over the place. Passing that's my sister. So even meet you in person. Yes, you are this who you just said you are. Nice, crack up. I remember when I was praising the Lord and shouting in the you videos.
Absolutely. I tell people I don't miss much in church. I might not post it on social media, but it's just, you know why I do that sometimes? Because my family, they're like, you always taking videos in church. I do, because there are moments that you may need to go back to one day and remember why you gave God praise. So I don't video people in church to make fun of them.
Mm-hmm.
I do it because you may hit a point in your life where you might lose hope. That video
Right.
might pick you up to see, what? When I was in a low place, I gave God praise regardless. So my intentions behind that are always pure, when I do that. There are some moments in church though that we're like, oh my gosh, I gotta get this. But in a it's not because I want to post it on social media and go in on people like, look at the uh-uh. Your moment is your moment. But there are things that I do like to capture. Every now and then I'll go through my phone and I'll look at some of the videos. I'm like, oh my gosh, I remember this. I remember this. I remember this. It's just for memory, not for mocking and mockery. For me, it's just for memory.
Well,
Precious.
I'm glad you sent me that because I put that on social media and I said I remember when I came down for Pastor Nance's
Mhm.
birthday party, Thanksgiving, and the Lord showed up at her party. No, at the Thanksgiving dinner, showed up on the Saturday service. And the Sunday, I didn't know I was gonna get ministered to. That's when I met Apostle Cheryl Wade. Lord, we're friends now. We talk all the time. And the Lord had, that's when I got jacked up. Just going, that's it's like every time I go to Delaware, Baltimore, I mean, I get jacked up.
Delaware. We are
Sorry,
Delaware.
wrong state. Come home. It's like I didn't even. I went there to be open because like when I came down, this is the second time going down. I said, God, I don't know why I'm going down there for. No, I'm going down in support, but I know there's a word in the house for me. And when I go there, I get jacked up. Yes, she's not Baltimore. No, I have a friend, Tyrone Lowe. He lives in Baltimore. That's why I said Baltimore. Anyway, so it's a good thing. It's a good thing. She says, what she said, Delaware loves you. I
We
love you
do.
too back.
We do. We do. We do. Delaware does it. We love you. We love
I have to come back soon. So Dana, so are you doing any like besides the tea? Are you going out and people are inviting you to share your book at churches and conventions or
you. Not yet. I really haven't, I would say, put myself out there. This
you
is
out there now? You on my show?
out there now. And I'm happy to explore other opportunities to kind of speak, like I said, more intimately about my book, because there are some parts of it that I didn't share openly. I just shared very surface, but it's nothing that I wouldn't share in a more intimate, private setting, because I
Right.
think there are things that I have encountered and gone through that are worth having a conversation about. I'm very big on conversation and being able to kind of, I like to hear thoughts from other people. I
Mm.
like sharing. I like talking about my experiences to an extent, because I feel like we're all helpers of another. Maybe you didn't go through exactly what I went through, or vice versa, but I think we can all glean from one another and just say, "Hey, okay, you went through that, I went through this. Now what's our the next steps for us?" You know. So I'm open to having deeper conversations around life experiences.
So let me ask you this. Do you think everyone needs a support system? Like I know y'all all have the support. You have a sister support
I
system.
have the best sister support system, the absolute best. Yes, I do believe people need a support system. I think sometimes we try to take on too much on our own, of our own thinking, and we get very weighted just with our personal burdens,
Right.
because we don't want to bother anyone, or we don't want to. I don't want to seem like I'm complaining. I've said that before. I don't want to seem like I'm complaining to anybody. But if I get to a point where I have to talk. I can't hold that in.
Hmm.
And I'm very blessed to have a sister support system that we talk and share. We can talk about anything, whether
Right.
or not we choose to share everything. We can talk about anything.
Mhm.
And I mean, absolutely any topic, any issue, any situation. And it's even if I'm in a situation where one of my sisters just sits and listens, sometimes you don't need people to give you feedback. You don't need people to give you advice. You need someone that's going to listen and
Right.
say, you know what? I'm here. You can rant and rave for an hour if you want. I'm here to listen so that you can get it off of your heart. So I am absolutely 150% in support of people having an outlet, someone
Mm.
that you can just go, be transparent, and where you
Mhm.
don't have to worry about it going anywhere.
Right.
So just being able to just have a voice and have an ear is very key.
Mhm. So let me ask you one more question. Looking back at your writing journey so far, what are your most proud of and what you have learned along the way?
Um, again, I think I have to go back to, I'm proud of actually getting through it. I I am happy. And I think probably one of my most humble moments and graceful moments is sharing some things that otherwise I probably wouldn't have shared with anybody. Well, no, not saying with anybody, with a broader audience. Some things we go through only certain people know about. But
Hmm.
I was able to kind of open up a little bit, and really say this was an experience I had, whether I went into depth about it or not. That was an accomplishment for me, because some things you can write about and people have, they give you a little side eye, like, for real, you know. So I laid that aside and said, maybe even if I share just this part about this part of my life, it can help someone. And that's
Right.
why I go back and say I'll talk about things in a more intimate setting. Um, all things are not for all people.
So at the ending of this book, do you do like you end with a scripture? Like, so anyone that reads this book, would they get healed, saved, delivered,
I
transparent of what you have gone through?
It's my hope that when people finish my book, um, that they will see truth in a different light and see their circumstances in a different light.
Right.
That's my hope. That when they get finished, they can say, okay, um, I understand Dana a little bit better now, you know, but I can see her journey. I understand why she's this way. I understand why she's that way. But I also see the foundation again. I go back to God. And that's I I kind of talk about grace and humility at the end, because that's what my life is. It's an experience of grace and humility.
Mhm.
And that's the biggest thing I want people to take away. My life is a testament of just that.
Amen. Amen. So where can anyone follow you, find your book, follow you, email you if they want to reach out to you and give you a testimony of reading your book? Where could they find you?
They can find me on Facebook. I have two pages, Dana Brittingham, and I also have D Brit Writes on Facebook. I'm also D Brit Writes on Instagram. My email is dbritwrites at gmail.com. Um, so that's my little author's name, D Brit Writes.
D Bryant.
D
Okay.
Brit
All right.
Writes. Yes.
I'm finally so happy that we finally had this opportunity to because your schedule, my schedule, but I'm grateful that we you came on today. You was a little early yesterday, but
No.
but I'm grateful that you came on and share your story, because that's what this is what Xavier's journey is about. Sharing my journey, sharing the testimony, and that's how I came up with Xavier's journey, sharing their testimonies. We all have gone through something. We all need to be healed. All of us need to be happy, laugh. Because I'll say this: coming into the new year for me, I've been laughing. I'm 55 now, Lord. I feel like a old man, but it's okay. But I've been laughing more than I normally do. And I'm just grateful to have people come on, share their stories, share their testimonies, share their trials, and the mountaintop testimony.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just grateful that God has allowed me to have this platform that I can bring people on. And it doesn't matter what part of life that you have came from or come from. Um, we all have a testimony to share. Good, bad, ugly, it doesn't matter, because God gets the glory out of our lives.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
and I thank you so much, Dana.
Thank you.
Hopefully I'll see you
So,
this summer.
okay. Or before the summer, you owe us a visit
Oh,
in Delaware.
I don't like going out in the wintertime out of state.
Okay, we'll
Even the
take the
plane.
summer then.
I don't like to travel. I hate the cold. I need some heat.
Okay.
But like I said, I'm grateful for you coming on and being obedient to come on and share your story, because I believe more people will pick up your book and read and say, "Oh my God, I didn't know. Wow." And just be grateful and know that you have the God in you. Like He the God in me. That's a song, that old school.
Yes, as old school. That's
But I thank you everyone for tuning in, and thank you Dana, Britt. Love you all, everyone that has tuned in to see her interview and our nice chat and loving the Lord and just giving God all his due. Everyone, thank you. Until next time, have a blessed, wonderful evening. Dana, you have any last words to say to the people before we leave?
I love everyone. We don't have to be blood related for me to love you, because that's just how I'm built. So I love everyone. Thank you for your support with my book, and just those that support me in general in my life. I am grateful to have the best village, and I know God ordained those people to be a part of my life and part of my village. So I'm grateful for them all.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. Love you. And Pastor Nancy, thank you too. She says, good interview. She loves a good interview.
Love
Dana,
you.
stay on after we leave.
Okay.
Everyone, until next time, love you.